Please welcome Yvette Cameron.
Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us today for Real Talk with Real Solutions. I'm Yvette Cameron. I'm the Senior Vice President of Oracle's Cloud HCM strategy, and I'm super excited to be here, joined with 4 great customers from different industries who are going to help drive this conversation on what matters today, how are they getting through some of the biggest challenges across their industries, and I hope you're going to find this session super engaging. I also want to thank Accenture for sponsoring this. They've brought together a great panel, and so with that, let me go ahead and bring them on board. So let's welcome our panelists. We've got Tiffanie Lewis from Diebold Nixdorf, Rudy Kelner from UnitedHealth Group, woo! Santo Campione from McDonald Corporation, and Traci Wade from Oracle. Woo!
Do we stand or do we sit down right away?
We sit down.
Okay.
All right, because I don't want to fall. All right. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think what I'd like to do is start by having you introduce yourself a little more fully. So the role that you have in your organization, what's going on in your organization, and of course, where are you in your Oracle implementation and transformation? So let's start with you, Tiffanie.
Okay, Yvette, thank you so much. My name is Tiffanie Lewis. I'm the Vice President of HR Technology and Service Solutions at Diebold Nixdorf. Diebold Nixdorf is the modern technology company, financial technology company, the #1 provider of ATMs around the world. We also have customers in the banking and retail industries, and our customers use products like self-checkout kiosks and also self-ordering devices. We have financial management solutions, and we also have services and software. And we provide services to our customers, even recently getting into servicing electronic vehicle charging stations. Ooh. So it's been a pretty interesting journey for us as a company, being 160 years old. Myself personally have been leading HR transformation at Diebold Nixdorf for the last few years. We started our journey with Oracle probably in 2017 with performance and goals, quickly expanded after our merger between the two companies, Diebold and Wencor Nixdorf. And in core HR, we went live in 2019. But then in the last year, from 2020 to 2021, we also globally went live with workforce compensation, talent management, guided learning, HR help desk, knowledge base, and we add some updates to performance and goals.
You did all of that in a year?
We did all of that in a year.
Wow, round of applause.
Mic drop.
Yes, and we established 5 employee service centers around the world. So 10 capabilities or modules across 62 countries in 12 months.
My gosh, wow. Well, thank you. Terrific. Rudy.
I'm Rudy Kelner, and it says I'm the head, so there's also a body. I lead people technology. Well, I love those titles. I lead the people technology and programs at UnitedHealth Group. UnitedHealth is the world leading provider of healthcare across the world. We have over 375,000 employees in I don't know how many countries, but a lot of countries as well. And we focus, of course, in the healthcare. So you might have had or have UnitedHealth as an insurance, but we also focus on pharmacy, clinicians, and nurses. And I think we're #1 employer in the United States of nurses, and we employ thousands of doctors and et cetera. So, and we are on a transformational journey as well. We started, I'd say, a few years back with implementations of compensation within Oracle and talent. Then we took a pause, and now we made a business case to move the rest of the HR technology, most of it, into Oracle. And it will take us about 24 to 36 months, so I'd love to do it just like you did in 12 months, but we'll take it offline and learn from your experience on that.
Right. Now, this isn't your first transformation rodeo, right? Didn't you do transformation at your previous organization?
Yeah, are we allowed to talk about that?
Yes, of course we are allowed to
I wasn't
talk
sure
about
what the protocol is. Yes, well, because there's a title, yes, so. It's a very personal conversation. I led the transformation at MetLife, kind of the transition from on-prem to Oracle HCM. And that was back in we started 2016 through 2019, and then I'm here now.
Great, great. Interested to hear your experiences as we get into this. Santo, please.
Pleasure. Thank you all. Santo, Campione, I'm with McDonald's Corporation. Some of you may have heard, it's a little burger joint you may have attended. But joking aside, we have 37,000 restaurants around the globe. Our journey with Oracle started in 2020, and it included our US and Canadian markets. Approximately 60,000 employees. It included the modules of core HR, time and labor, and payroll. We are now continuing our journey and understanding, or better put, evaluating how to deploy a global HCM solution. And if I may step back introducing myself, the title, as you see behind me, is Director for Business Applications. I think a better phrase would be Director for Global People Systems. That is my responsibility. I focus on the HCM, or what at McDonald's we call Global People Solutions.
Fantastic. All right, and I've got some good questions for you to drill into that. Traci from Oracle, welcome.
Thank you. I can't speak from the technology transformation, but I can definitely speak from the diversity and inclusion, transformation in the company. I am Traci Wade. I am the Vice President and Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion for Oracle. I've been with Oracle for 18 years come February. Do not try to calculate my age, I'm very young. But I can share that I've been part of the D&I organization since it launched about 14 years ago. And there has absolutely been a transformational journey. We've definitely been nimble and agile of how we're thinking about diversity and inclusion and how we are evolving it and into our global business. So happy to be part of this discussion and with this illustrious panelist, and I think we're going to have a good time with some of these panelists here today.
Thank you, thank you. And actually, I want to start my first question with you. So I think about the last few years and the massive upheaval that we've seen in businesses, business transformation, the changes in the workforce, expectations have changed of our workers. They're in the driver's seat today. There's a higher demand for different types of working, et cetera. And we as individuals, our own focus and roles have changed. And so Traci, I'm going to start with you. As you think back over the last few years, I know the DE&I initiative has been long going, but how has the pandemic, how did the last couple of years really change or affect what you're focused on or your role in general?
It's a great question. What I will say is that I think for Oracle, as we think about pandemic and having to work from home, we're pretty well suited there. I've been working from home for almost 18 years, so we've had very much a virtual model for many, many years, so that didn't feel very different. I do think that where the transformation happened for us, quite frankly, was as you think about engaging with our employee resource groups and the touch that we were able to do globally. What do I mean by that? Zoom allowed us the opportunity to engage globally with individuals, where many of the different sessions that would happen, they would happen in their local hubs and their different office locations. And so by hosting sessions via Zoom, we were able to touch people globally, bring them into different conversations about different topics as it related to diversity and inclusion. Women's initiatives happen globally, and it allowed the discussions to expand, LGBTQ+, all of across the spectrum. We were able to have better conversations, bring others, and increase the awareness. So for us, that was a positive effect of how we started to engage broader with our talent. We were able to touch more people. We have different programs with our Oracle Women's Leadership. We have Emerge Leadership Summit. We have Women in Tech series. And in the past, they would travel, and we were limited to the numbers because travel and certainly the cost of travel and expense. When we opened this up into a platform using the different technology, we were able to touch more people because many leaders were able to nominate more talent to attend these sessions. So we went from what was maybe a modest 200 to 500 to 700 people attending because we were able to use these virtual platforms to engage and have more intentional experiences. So may not as big, of course we always love to touch and be right there and network and engage like we're back here today at Oracle CloudWorld, but it really did allow us to engage more, bring more people into discussions, and it was a very interactive platform that we were using so that they were very similar experiences. So I think in that way is how I think of the transformation as it relates to diversity and inclusion.
I think that's amazing that you got such an expansion of the audience when we all thought we were going to be isolated and kept in our little homes, right? You actually blossomed and everybody opened up. That's fantastic. Santo, a lot changing with you. Tell me about, same question, right? How has your role and focus changed?
Clearly, similar to, paraphrase what was just shared by my esteemed colleague Traci, is inclusion, community, and I'll have to add security became pivotal to us as we as we all endured the pandemic. It was walking the halls before, interacting with our colleagues, the water cooler per se conversations were welcomed, and we wanted to bring that back, yet we had to do so virtually. So introducing technology, introducing communications to spur those communities, those virtual communities. And again, I would say that was a positive via the pandemic. Before, those communities were limited to, I'm in Chicago, or I'm in this restaurant, or I work for this owner-operator. Now via technology, we've been able to expand that community and offer a better outlet, whether it be from a mentoring, from a growth, information sharing to both our restaurants as well as our staff. And again, I have to emphasize security. We access via technology anything and everything from all places. So we also took an eagle eye towards towards security.
Security is a really interesting one, right? You want to share and open information, and yet now suddenly we're arming people with laptops in our corporate environments that maybe they weren't used to having those in their organization. So having a strong IT play there and that security focus is really important.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I'm sorry, I was just going to, because it is, but you brought up a good, I infer a good point from you, is it's a balance.
Yeah.
Right? We have to secure the process, the solution, yet we also have to balance that with the user experience.
Right.
So I caution all of us, take both in consideration.
Right. And you, both of you, expect to see this kind of virtual dynamic just continuing now in the future. You've seen good success. You're going to continue it?
We're not going back.
I will say we've seen a lot of good value because, again, being able to touch more. And you actually, it's interesting, you reminded me of something that we just recently experienced, Santo, when you talked about the water cooler conversations. One of our employee resource group, our Oracle Latino Alliance, OLA, they started water cooler conversations via Zoom. And these were not your typical formatted, programmatic sessions. They were just people coming together and having discussions and topics and building that community and just having, just very free form kind of concept. So I think that some sessions at some point may come back to live. I think there's a value in that, but largely we're going to stay in this model we are in. We're just seeing some positive, more expansive interactions we could do.
Technology letting us be more human, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I know we've been talking about the changes, and I'm hearing obviously about the number one trend, which is remote and hybrid work. Tiffanie, I know that you had an initiative underway before the pandemic and then it hit. Maybe you can tell us about how your company and you are responding to this new work model that we have.
Sure. We started a workplace evolution project prior to the pandemic, probably a year or so before. And our leadership was extremely interested in understanding what our real estate footprint should be around the world. We spent a lot of time analyzing how many locations we had, how many we own versus how many we leased, how many employees were associated with those locations. And it was a challenge initially trying to ensure we knew whether we even had employees. Was it a warehouse? Was it, some other office space? And who was associated with managing that space? And so because of that journey, one of the things we decided to do was attach a persona to every employee. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 personas: remote, flexible, and anchored. So we decided with the managers, we said, based upon the work that your team member has to do, please provide a persona for that individual. So we created a field in Oracle that will allow us to track the personas. And with that information, we made decisions about our real estate and reduced our real estate footprint around the world. So since we were already into that, we knew where people were in terms of their persona when the pandemic started. And that gave us a little bit of a leg up, if you will, to figure out where do we go next from there.
So individual employees have this designation in your system. I'm thinking there are some fantastic journeys you can create based on those, right?
That's the next frontier for us,
Yeah,
Yvette, is to create journeys for those experiences. So because of the speed of our implementation with all of the various capabilities we put in, we had to stick to some of the basics with each one of those modules, and some of them we took a little bit further. So we took reporting a little bit further, for example. So we wanted managers to have information at their fingertips for their teams. As we restructured HR and changed the way that we were delivering services to employees through the service centers being the first point of contact for employees, we wanted to have the basic questions be answered through our service centers or through our knowledge base so employees could quickly get those answers. And for the most complicated things, that's when they would have to reach out to HR, still through that service request process though. And in doing that, one of the things that we discovered is that we do need to create something that is a little bit more seamless experience for the remote worker, depending upon the type of remote worker they are. And so we had those office employees. I was just in another session. We talked about the laptop people. You have those people, but then we have a significant portion of our workforce, almost a third, if not more, is service technicians. So the people that service the ATMs or the electronic vehicle charging stations, they're already out in the field every single day. And so how do we connect with that person, which is different than how we may connect with a typical office worker? And those are the things that we're exploring right now, and Journeys is a good option for us to consider.
I love it. I love it. Rudy, let me turn over to you. We're talking about experiences and different ways of engaging and connecting people and managing a remote workforce. I don't know of any industry who's been in the news and suffering so much from the negative experiences of burnout, right, high turnover, the demands on the healthcare organization and the workers every day. So let me ask you the question, how are you thinking about talent in your organization, whether it's new ways of recruiting or new ways of engaging and improving the experience? Give me the highlights of kind of how you're rethinking talent in your organization.
Sure. So I think we're doing a great job of attracting people into the UnitedHealth Group. We hired thousands of people, and healthcare for us, there are obviously clinicians, but there's healthcare that is done, people who are answering phone when you call 1-800 number and about your claim, right? There are IT professionals who are powering the technology that hospitals and other clinics run. There are pharmacy techs that are putting the pills into the box and sending them over to you in the mail.
Yeah.
So kind of how do we attract all those folks? And so we're doing a great job of bringing people into the fold. Where we now focused on is how do we create experiences for the people to find the full potential at UHG, a company of over 300,000 people. If you get bored with doing this or your interest change in life, you should be able to find your next passion here, right? And we should be able to help you with getting better at your current skills, so right, kind of skills development, but also upskilling into the new role. Because as we know, skills change very quickly. So I graduated college with C++ language. I don't know if anyone else, who even uses C++ now, but I'm sure I can still find a job in that.
I forgot you beat with COBOL.
Yeah. So kind of these languages might still exist, but now there are new languages. So I'm just using that as an example. And the same is even for clinicians, right? So they keep on constantly learning the new skills. Like I look at doctors, they always pull up stuff on their phone and trying to troubleshoot, so they're constantly learning. So how can we offer the same to our non-exam population, our phone team, right? So they can do great at this job, but also find a role within UHG by us investing into them and for them to find the full potential here.
So skills investment,
For sure,
central.
yeah.
It really becoming a skills-driven organization.
For sure, right. And how do we identify the supply of skill that we have? Mm-hmm. How do we reward the skills, right? So how do we manage the skills as a full end-to-end life cycle, and move it horizontal, right? So right now, kind of skills we track on potential on the requisition. Then we might do it in your profile, and then probably that's where it ends.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we then start looking at what are the skills of demand for the future, what are the next 5 years, where we're going to grow as a business, where potentially the world is going, right? So obviously nobody could have predicted a pandemic, but we cannot predict the next one. Right? I was just reading something that's coming out of Africa is the next. So how do we prepare for that?
Exactly.
And how do we define the demand of the business and then help people transition from where they are today into the future through the skills?
Yeah, I'm super excited by what Oracle introduced last year, which is our dynamic skills capability. You're exploring that?
Yes, I've seen the demos today again. I was super excited to see kind of how an employee can experience that.
I think that the concept there is using artificial intelligence to really understand the skills of individuals, to uncover them, and to use artificial intelligence and matching capabilities to remove the friction from connecting people to opportunities. But to do that, you have to know the skills. And the skills that you use in your organization might be different from the skills and how they're defined by the individual as they come in. So it's really exciting to see the use of artificial intelligence and driving those processes forward.
If I could just add on just quickly to that, as you're thinking about how we're hiring, engaging talent, retaining talent differently, one of the things that we have looked at is within our Oracle Talent Advisory organization is how are we engaging the talent? We have Oracle Relaunch program that we've developed. What does that talent look like? We're bringing in talent that may have stepped away from the workforce to raise family, take care of loved ones, and we're bringing them back into the workforce. So we're thinking non-traditionally there. We also have a Generation O program that initially launched in Latin America, in Brazil specifically, and touching maybe your non-traditional talent, may not have worked in a tech industry, may not have a degree. How are we engaging talent differently? We have to be more creative in this job market of how we're bringing talent in. And that has expanded from Latin America now to EMEA and now in North America. And that's been a really strong program. And one of the things I'm really very proud of in our program, and what we're seeing is the talent we're bringing in is staying longer. They're sticky. They're wanting to stay and grow with Oracle. And so that's the positive impact. And just one other point that I think we did really well, and many of you probably experienced the same, as we looked at our internship programs, we're like, how do we still, bring our interns in and have great experience? As you've heard, remote hybrid work has been our model for several years. And we still brought in our interns. We provided them with the laptops and talking about the security. We made sure that, we were as careful and put security at forefront of our minds. But we provided very similar experiences because then we connected the interns in to our employee resource groups, those who chose to get involved and get engaged, so they could have similar experiences as if they were in an office environment, which would be our typical model. But I think what we did was we had to start thinking outside of the box, breaking down the typical strategy and think, how do we be able to engage in the same way, keeping security in mind, but having those really experiences for talent that's considering Oracle, and that was the internships. And then again, how we're reaching non-traditional talent and bringing them into the organization. And we found that to be very effective of how we engage out in the marketplace and attract talent.
Yeah, I used actually our intern program myself at Oracle, and we had several interns. They never came into our main offices, but they had the best experience. They said they earned, gained terrific knowledge and experience, and they would totally do it again. It was all of that came together, so it was exciting. Santo, I want to do a little counterpoint. So Rudy was just saying that focused on skills and the experience because people should be able to find their next job with you because you're 300,000 plus employees. Yet that's not the case at McDonald's, right? You don't think that people are necessarily lifers at your organizations.
Agreed. McDonald's, while we would like to believe, could be and can very well be a career for few, right? Let's be frank with each other. We have 37,000 restaurants across 40 plus countries, approaching 2 million workers. About 8% of those are employees. So that's our current, and we do not issue laptops or mobile devices, so whatever they have, we have to leverage. So that was our issue, but in terms of attracting the talent and maintaining, retaining, so we looked at one. Oh, and I should add one more thing. Reality, our turnover is very high.
Yeah.
Very high.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, your workforce, though, is pretty diverse itself, right?
Thank you. Yes, our workforce is such a variety. So we have, as you can imagine, teenagers, people that may still be in high school, through senior citizens, as well as others with special needs, those looking for summer jobs, some that do not speak, that the language of the country may not be their primary. All good. Mm-hmm. But we had to address their needs, right? One, of understanding of technology, and two, their goals. So in terms of how we attract, we focus on three things for we refer to our employees or our workers. One, speed. From attract to hire, speed. We're looking for technology to enable minutes. So by the time someone walks into a store or pulls out their cell phone, how can I apply to McDonald's? Via my cell phone, in my core language, speaking versus, because some may not be able to clearly write what they want. Mm-hmm. So technology, our goal is 6 minutes or less. By the time get to our website to point of a video interview, 6 minutes or less. Two, once you are part of our employee base, or I should say worker base, because not all are employees, then it's community, right? We want to ensure that you are looked at not just at your store where you may have 100 employees, I have to stop saying it, 100 workers / employees, but the vast community that McDonald's can offer. So how can we leverage technology to offer that community? And then three, as you mentioned earlier, that McDonald's may not be the career destination for all. Fine, we knew that going in. But what can we do to prepare them for that career of choice? Whether it be, GED, for those familiar, high school graduate, to college, to skills in the workforce that they could then leverage for their next career. We looked at all three, and that's been a focus of us in terms of talent acquisition and retention, and more importantly, resignation.
Yeah. I'm hearing a common theme here of community, right? How are we using technology and other approaches to build community, because that seems to engender greater participation and fulfillment. I'm also hearing empathy a lot in these conversations. So some new words maybe that we weren't using, excuse me, as often 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. Yvette, can I interject just something quickly? This is real talk, right?
Real talk? Let's
Real
hear it.
solutions,
Do I have to take my jacket off here, roll up my sleeves? What are we going to do?
So when we talk about talent and the skills that people need to have, I think sometimes we miss talking about the managers and the skill set they need to have.
Yes.
When it comes to employee experience, right? Managers are a primary part of that equation.
Yeah.
Right? And some people do not see managers as owning the employee experience. They see HR as owning the employee experience. But we're an enabler, we're a supporter. We don't necessarily own it. We may create what the journey looks like, but who actually engages with that worker every day, day in and day out, actually impacts what happens with that worker. Do they stay with you? Do they leave you? How long do they stay? How are they engaged? Are they passively engaged? Are they actively disengaged? All these things that we measure when we do our engagement surveys. So I think one of the things that we need to talk about, and we started talking about at Diebold Nixdorf, is what does it mean to be a manager here? And how do we have that conversation with you about what our expectations are of a manager, and how do we create a program that allows you to see what those expectations are? Because perhaps you are a great technician, but maybe you shouldn't lead people. Right? Perhaps you're an amazing engineer, and that's what you should continue to be. And how do you have that conversation with people and let them flourish where they're really skilled? And then as an HR team, how can we enable managers? And these are the questions that we're asking ourselves. How can we enable managers? So we created like a manager site on our intranet so that managers can go to one place to find out how do they get certain things done. And from that place, they can log into Oracle if they need to transfer someone or if they need to initiate a requisition from that site. And so we're creating that, but the upskill also is for HR so that you can remind leaders of what those expectations are and point them to the places where we want them to go.
I think this is a great segue into, a question I was going to ask later, which is, are managers equipped to lead in today's environment? Do they have the empathy? Do they have the understanding of how to interpret analytics? Are they, unfortunately, like you were saying, in some cases, right person, wrong job, right? And how do we help identify that? So I'm curious, anybody want to make a comment about managers' readiness?
I'll start. So
Thank
I think
you.
we have really good news is that humans are capable of learning.
Yay!
Right? So when you're asking do we have the skill? And even if you don't, right, we can develop, we can invest, and that's
Yes.
where I agree with you completely. HR and the enterprise has to invest a lot into the manager development. We have over 40,000 managers, and that's 40,000 different experiences that we offer, right, with onboarding, offboarding, and promotions, and et cetera, in the day-to-day life. And it's the manager who's really the champion and the ambassador and the sponsor of that employee. So we can constantly invest, and that's why I want to also challenge Oracle a little bit on as we think about the next frontier, right? So there's a lot of investment into skills, and think we should be doing it for the next 1 to 3 years, right? But as we think of the next 5 years, how do we then start rewarding skills? How do we start using skill as the currency? So then maybe for you, the next role is not the manager, because a lot of people jump into those roles because that's where the money is, right? So how do we reward your investment into yourself and our investment into you, as well as how do we create more agility within the organization, right? Because once we have the skills and we can offer you interested roles within the organization, we can create this agile pods or agile teams that can move around. And we need technology within Oracle in the next 3 to 5 years to see how do we move away from jobs and move away from roles and move into these agility where, hey, I have all these skills and I'm working, and hence maybe we can reduce the number of managers, right?
Yeah.
And offer more insights to the managers about the workforce that they have through these analytics and insights and networks, and then they can constantly get better at being a manager, people leader.
I think skills obviously are important, but you need to give managers and individuals a chance to demonstrate and develop those skills. And so I think about the latest capability within Oracle Me, our new touch points, which really fosters that engagement between the employee and manager. Frankly, I think a big benefit of that solution is it makes the manager accountable to the employee, right?
For sure.
They're driving conversations, they've got a responsibility to follow up, and it's that ability to then help the manager start learning. I need to be more responsive, I need to be accountable.
And maybe it's even changing the nomenclature. Manager is no longer a manager, it's a coach now.
Yes.
Right? It's no longer
It's a
managing
coach.
tasks. And maybe it's a little different in McDonald's environment, right? Where you're managing a task of production. But in most of the other roles, I would say you're really a coach. And even in McDonald's, you're probably coaching folks how to be their best selves.
Right.
Right? And so most managers that join as a manager, right? And they focused on task and production. But how do we help them say, hey, they're working with people. And humans need empathy and other and curiosity. How do we develop those skills? Through coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like the remote hybrid experience has brought out the coach in many of us, for those who have it in them, because you are encouraging individuals to speak up and to participate, et cetera. Let me turn the conversation to from the very soft skills of coaching and leadership to the very hard skill of analytics and analysis in the organization. Because let's be real, this is a real conversation, right? Yeah. Without understanding the data, how can you really plan for the future? And you need to understand the people, the processes in the organization, the acceptance, et cetera. And yet, I think that analytics and data analysis is, well, we've heard, this is a stereotype, but it typically not the largest strength of HR leadership. More and more individuals in HR are coming from a finance background, but not all the time. And so, to what extent are we enabling our workforce and our managers to understand and leverage analytics? I think it's a hard question. So first off, I want to say, do you feel that the pandemic, and I'm going to start with you, Santos, do you feel that the pandemic has changed your focus on analytics, or is it just continuing, to ramp up as it was?
No, it definitely has changed. It's really brought to the forefront that we need to manage McDonald's as a global entity.
Yeah.
As I'd mentioned earlier, 40 plus countries. We have been historically a very decentralized organization. Across those countries, we have 200 plus applications, HR applications. Wow. So in terms of sharing data, knowing data, put sharing aside, knowing that the data is there, we've struggled. So we mentioned transformation. We are on a journey now to say, how can we centralize, share that analytical data so that we can understand if we have someone in Spain or someone in the UK that can be ready for that next career progression, or if a restaurant is struggling in one location, to have knowledge of what may be available in another, they can easily understand that. See and understand and leverage that information. So that is what the pandemic has proved to us, is that I don't live in my world anymore, my four walls, right? There's much more that we can and should do via talent analytics.
Yeah. And Rudy, you were talking about skills, and to me, skills without talent insights is a waste of time, right? You're developing skills, you need to be able to measure, et cetera. So
No question.
yeah, you have a big analytics division in your organization?
Yeah, so we have a lot of focus on insights. I think we're doing a great job of producing a lot of numbers. I think where we all can do, not just within UHG, but as a whole, how do we understand the data, right? The storytelling behind it, and get a feel for what the numbers really mean to us. Because again, Oracle and other tools can spit out a lot of insights.
Great point.
And I think people, when they see the charts, they kind of get lost and they cannot understand. Sometimes they get, hey, what does that, all these bars mean and all these numbers and all the waves? Is it waves in the ocean? So is it, right? So I think that storytelling component, and this is where HR business partners and business leaders really need to build that acumen around and understanding the insights and then drive action from those insights, right? So if we tell you that you have all these skill and supply, well, what are you going to do about that, right? So knowing the data doesn't always help with actual action, so that's another skill set I think we need to invest into.
Understanding the data and then being able to take action, the right action. Yes, you need to build the skills, but I think the technology is improving to where it's helping you tell the story. So if you're not familiar with it, Oracle Analytics will actually enable you to not just visualize the data in so many new, exciting ways, but it also can interpret what's happening and tell you, we're seeing this trend, this thing is happening. It uses natural language processing to bring those pieces forward to help everybody in HR and your managers, et cetera, be storytellers. You look like you want to jump in.
I do. I just want to kind of jump in there because we're definitely using our own data analytics technology to better understand the experiences of our talent within Oracle. How long are they in roles? The attrition, how soon before they're promoted, and it's just storytelling. Because are we seeing that talent maybe staying too long in a entry-level role when they should have moved, perhaps a year ago? So we're looking at that data to better understand the experiences of our talent so that we can make changes, so that we can think about how do we make sure that we have processes in place. And this is from organization to organization, so we look at it globally, and then we look at it from leader to leader to make sure that as we're looking at this data that we're understanding better the experiences, how people are moving, how, what attrition looks like in the organization, perhaps even the understanding of the reason for the attrition as well. It's not, with the great resignation we just left, kind of moved a little bit from. I'm hoping that that has ended for most, and then now we're in the quiet quitting kind of stage now. But I will tell you, the data analytics to understand from organization, to understand the experience of the employees has been so insightful. It has helped us move the needles with our executive leaders to better understand the talent, the diversity of the talent, and we're able to get that granular to understand, are women leaving at a rapid rate? Are they leaving more at the junior level? Are we seeing they're leaving at your mid-manager level? Where are those stop gaps so that we then can put processes, procedures in from diversity inclusion perspective, from a talent development perspective? How can we all collaborate to course correct that? And I think the data analytics has been so helpful in that storytelling to get our executives on board. It has opened a door for us that we had not had in the past.
There's a great investment in analytics. I know that Accenture has built an aware analytics product on top of Oracle capabilities to further, the insights and conversations and understanding of data for organizations. So it's fundamental.
Yeah, it's been the same for us. So we have a little under 22,000 employees, about 7,000 contingent workers. And what we decided to do is, before we could jump into analytics, we wanted to get managers used to looking at data in certain ways. So when we deployed all of this capability, we used OTBI for dashboards for managers. So every manager, when they log into Oracle HCM, they can see a set of dashboards that tells them how many active employees and employees on leave they have, how many male versus female versus non-binary, how many people did not respond to that portion of self-identification, right? They can see their attrition rates. They can see it's involuntary or involuntary. They can see how many employees they have across the generations in their group. So if they have a high number of employees in the older generations, perhaps they need to think about their recruiting strategy a little bit more effectively. And it's been extremely helpful for us, Traci, to put that in the hands of leaders so that when we get more advanced analytics, they'll already be in the mindset to looking at data in a certain way and asking the question, what should I do now that I see this? Yeah. And that's what we want managers to do, to say, what can I do about what I see? The first thing was making it available and being transparent.
So let me challenge you guys. I don't want to hear what you're saying, Rudy, but you've talked about analytics for leaders. You talked about analytics for managers. What about analytics for individual employees? Is that something we should be surfacing?
Yeah, so I would add that networking is super key. So I come here, I love networking with people, get to know everyone, right? So how do we offer that? So again, a company of 300,000, how do we look across how people connect information, where the work actually gets done, kind of this view into, and then help people through helping them figure out who else they should be connecting, right? So for example, if we bring in diverse candidates into the workforce, it's easy to identify who diverse people are, but are they actually being included in the discussions, right? So we can use the power of figuring out how they communicate with people, what meeting are they in, when they're speaking in meetings, when they're not, right? So all that networking component, and then we can use that to coach the individuals, and of course the managers, but mostly the employees, on how to be a better networker, how to be better engaged within their organization.
Yeah. So I know we're coming to the end of our time here. I've heard so many great stories, and as an organization, you're all from different industries, and I know we've got a very diverse audience here. And the question might be, where do I start, right? And how do I get started? So what I'd like to do is ask you, and I'm just going to work down the line here, is, in your transformation and as you think about the future, I'd like to understand, like, one of the areas that Accenture as an SI, as an example, has helped you, and just how they helped you prioritize, focus, transform, et cetera, because people want to know where to start.
Absolutely. Real talk, I had a beautiful 3-year roadmap. It was beautiful. We were going to take our time. We were going to do Oracle Recruiting Cloud after core. Then we were going to move on to talent management, and we were going to implement compensation around the world. And we just figured out, these are the blocks of things that we're going to do. But our CEO, CFO, and Chief People Officer at the time said, can you accelerate that? And can you add more to it? And I said, sure, with what army? And the answer was with Accenture. Okay, so we started having conversations about what our current state was with the Accenture leadership team. And with them, we put together a plan to accelerate everything that we were planning to do and add more, with adding the blueprinting process, which was a fantastic process for us to really look at, can we use the capability, because we've already made the investment in Oracle, can we use the capability as it is delivered, and what are those nuances in the way that we do things today where we may have to make some changes? And we tried to be as simplistic as we possibly can to get a consistent global experience, and that's difficult to do across 62 countries. But we did take into consideration what was some personalization, and Accenture walked us through that process.
Great.
And that was very helpful for us, and they helped us implement our service centers as well.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm next. Yeah, so we just started dating with Accenture, so we're like in a new relationship, right? So we're still learning, but I'm counting on Accenture, though they have the experience with large and complex implementations, and we need a lot of help of just digesting from where we are, or moving us from where we are into where we should go, and bringing a lot of insights from the trends, and also what are the new technologies on the horizon, right? So we spent some time on, for example, in the VR world. I got a little dizzy. Oops, sorry.
VR for like onboarding?
Virtual reality, yeah, for onboarding.
Okay,
That was cool just to experience kind of how would the next generation of people who are coming in, like our kids who are spending all the time in Roblox, how would they then experience the world in VR? So that was cool.
Oh, exciting. Santo.
To use a similar analogy, we're dating with Accenture. we're considering going steady. Right? So we're at that crossroads right now.
Wait, this is an HR audience. Okay,
Yes, exactly. But joking aside, I'll never forget when we first kicked off our implementation across our U.S. and Canadian markets. Our business stakeholders said, get the A players. I only want A players. And in retrospect, I mean, every organization has A players and B and C. But what Accenture provided was the network, right? The balance, because again, I'll be frank with each other. This is not a negative, it's a reality. No consulting firm's going to provide you all players. It's just not reality, right? But what Accenture did provide us was a network, intellectual capital, thought leadership, both on the project and outside. So that's what we look for a company such as Accenture to provide is, yes, give us the people that you know will succeed, will deliver. We know you can't control, and some will come and go, but give us the network behind them. That's what Accenture delivers.
Fantastic. 30 seconds, and then we're going to wrap. I want to ask you a different question. So one piece of advice that you would give HR leaders here moving forward, right? That's something to take with them as they leave the session today.
In 30 seconds, I will just remind everyone, if you think about this journey, transformation, D&I, is that all of this work is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It takes time to evolve here. You heard the 3-year plan went out the door, you had to come back. You've heard the different experiences here. So I remind everyone, be good to yourself as you're thinking about how do we move forward, be flexible and nimble at all times, agile, and just always remember again, it is a marathon. It's not the quick sprint to get there. And I think that's what I would like to leave everybody with today.
I love it. And be good to yourself. I'm going to take
Be good to yourself.
Thank you so much to our wonderful panel, and thank you everybody for joining us. Fantastic. Thank you so much.